Rocky Top Podcast, episode 186. I am Joel Hollingsworth, and as always, I'm here with Will Shelton. He's right over there. Will, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's a good week to talk about stuff. But first, before we get into that, I wanted to ask you 60 seconds off topic. What was the most interesting thing that happened to you at Boo at the Zoo today?
What was the most interesting thing? Yeah, shout out to Boo at the Zoo at Zoo Knoxville, which the last time I was there, I was a kid. So this is the first time we've lived in we live in Knox County. The first time we've lived in Knox County. First time I've lived here in 16 years, and certainly first time I've lived here as a parent. So it was a lot of fun to take our kids. It was Star Wars night at Boo at the Zoo.
That's fun.
So that was a lot of fun. And then I had it's the first time this has happened to me where Zakai Ziegler was there. Oh. And I like the dad of 5-year-old who like seeing that as a dad of, oh, my son kind of knows who this is. Yeah. And then I had a whole existential kind of thing where what I was trying to say was, hey, this guy, this is the truth of the matter of full disclosure of what I was trying to say is, we almost bought you his jersey, but didn't, because we ended up buying him a Grant Williams jersey, Celtics jersey instead. But in the middle of that trying to come out, I was like, don't say that to Zakai Ziegler or anyone. So I had a lot of like all the hats that I wear were all coming out at once. They were all falling off my head of like sports blogger and dad and just human being or whatever. But he was super cool and took a great picture with my kids and all that stuff. So
cool.
Very grateful. So yeah, Knoxville's I romanticize this place because I haven't lived here in so long. And now that I've lived here again for only 4 months, the Vols are apparently great at like everything. Yeah. So I need to side gig with the Chamber of Commerce at the moment because I'm very pro Knoxville. So it was a good night at Boo at the Zoo. Good weekend in the Volunteer State.
Yeah. So like he's like short, right, for a basketball player, or is he actually short? Is he shorter than you?
Oh yeah, I'm 6'3". So like it's not unusual that people are shorter than me, but he's short. I mean, usually basketball players, when you run up on them, more than any other sport, you can tell that's a basketball player. And my wife is short. Alex is 5'4" or 5'5", and I mean he was like closer to her than to me. So yeah, but it just like it no joke. Like then you kind of watch him, and he was there with his mom. That was cool. But like you kind of watch him and you're like, he's got the stature of a guy that if you ran up on him in the YMCA, you would think, okay, this guy's not going to be a problem. And then you're like, oh no, this is like, he's one of the most impactful players on a Tennessee team that's as good as anybody. So yeah, like I said, it's a good night at Boo at the Zoo, and very glad to have that guy on our team for a number of other years still to come.
That reminds me of one time I was at the airport. We were actually picking up some of our Ukrainian friends, and so it was down in Knoxville, and John Fulkerson and I guess his girlfriend or somebody were coming in, and it's weird, because I did kind of a double take, and so I looked at him and I smiled at him, just like you do a regular person,
Sure.
And we like, our eye contact was a little weird, it was weirdly long, because, I would expect that from me. It's like, oh, hey, that's Folky, right? But it almost looked like he was saying, oh, hey, that's Joel, which I know he wasn't,
The Tri-Cities bond is strong, apparently.
It is. I smell pals on that guy.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, my only experience from Boo at the Zoo was uh, we took our kids. Our kids have always been terrified of Halloween, and so I don't know why we took them to the Boo at the Zoo, but I think Abby was like 5, and she was like always very clingy. So if she got frightened or something, she would just run to either me or her mom and just grab onto us. She was, you know, that was her home base, right? But toward the end, somebody came in like a full blown Spider-Man costume, including the mask over the face, and she freaked and did not run to me, did not run to mom. She just ran the other direction as fast as she could. And she was running away from us. And we almost couldn't catch her. She was 5 years old. And yeah, she's still kind of a little nervous around. She's got a bad spidey sense about Spider Man. So, yeah. All right. Let's talk Tennessee football because, hey, we got stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Tennessee versus LSU this last Saturday. It was an 11 a.m. Central game, which is kind of what you want against LSU. But they were still, did they have glass bottles in the stadium? It looked like they had glass bottles, but of course, I understand that our mustard and ketchup at Neyland Stadium now are in packets and not in bottles after the Ole Miss game. So, anyway, little off topic there again. But Tennessee put up 502 yards of total offense. LSU only got 355 rushing yards. Kind of a big surprise here. 263 for the Vols and only 55 for the Tigers. And you know what? Here's the big surprising thing. What do you think the most surprising thing about the game was, Will? What am I going to say?
That's a great question. What was the most? The totality of it might be the answer to that question of what was the most surprising thing. But no, I don't know. I'm trying to think based on what you were just saying. But no, tell me what was the most surprising thing of the game.
Tennessee won the time of possession.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. I'm so conditioned now to think that stat doesn't matter at all. That I even throw it out when we actually win it. Yeah, there was. I mean, we grinded them there at the end. I think that's part of it too. When you say the totality of the thing was so surprising, and Tennessee won 40-13.
Yeah.
We attempted 5 field goals. I mean, that in the realm of what is success for Heupel and these guys offensively. Oh, that could have been worse. And Tennessee is we are seeing more often that Tennessee is running some clock late in these games because we have the luxury of doing so. So yeah, there's still plenty new out there with this team. It's really impressive too, like just in the weirdness of football. That for we would need maybe somebody even nerdier than Bill Connolly to answer this, but what is the combination of best average starting field position? Which, good grief, I mean, Tennessee started drives an insane but still one time of possession. Like that's an odd combination. And if we were playing Tennessee Martin this week and not Alabama, I'm sure we'd dive into it more. But yeah, good point there before we move on from last week of that was an odd and beautiful combination there for Tennessee's offense.
It was really good to see him put on the brakes and actually be able to. Okay, my metaphor is going to break down here, but they could still actually move.
Right.
They actually moved
rolling
the ball.
stop.
Yeah. So they slowed down and still made progress. So that was nice because, like before, what we do is we go into we wouldn't just play slower. We would like totally change the offense and bunch up, and that's not what we do. So anyway, Brew McCoy, another terrific game. He had 7 passes, 140 yards. And then he was also altruistic he gave Jalen Hyatt the 2 touchdowns. So he took all the yards. Hyatt got the touchdowns. Byron Young, I think that guy actually has a good case for adverse possession through open and notorious possession of the LSU backfield. Did you know that you can actually steal your neighbor's property if you just like put a fence over it and claim that it's yours? And if they don't complain for like 7 years, it becomes yours. Yeah, that's kind of what Byron Young did.
Is this a law school? Is this like an obscure bar exam question, or have you been part of a case where such a thing actually took place? Or are you allowed to say on this podcast?
Yeah, this is not legal advice. I do not expect
Just
anybody
spot
to go
up in your neighbor's yard and fence it off real quick, and then wait 7 years and it's fine. Go Vols.
Yeah, yeah. Here we should turn on the. We're actually live. You know, I forgot to say this. We're doing a live stream this time. So it's going out to YouTube, our YouTube Game Day on Rocky Top YouTube page thing. We're on Facebook Live, and we're on whatever Twitter's version of that is too. So we actually can get comments. So if all the lawyers want to tell me that, hey, you're remembering that wrong from studying for the bar exam, which was when I heard it, it was like 20 years ago. But yeah, I think it's a thing. Yes. But my point is not that you should go out and move your fence. My point is that Byron Young moved his fence very effectively yesterday. Had 2.5 sacks, 2.5 TFLs. He had 5 tackles. That dude is getting really, really good. And then the rest of the line too. I mean, that was supposed to be a pretty good LSU offensive line, wasn't it? And
well, their tackles, they had
I know they had
one guy in the hospital, and then playing some freshmen and other things. But what surprised me is I went at halftime to go back and say, man, 4 sacks in the first half, and I don't have I'm not subscribed to the right thing to tell me what Tennessee's most recent record for sacks in a half is. But I thought, man, 4 sacks in a game, like when's the last time we did that against somebody that wasn't Tennessee Tech? But if you go back and look through again for where it can feel like sometimes, especially before Saturday, that Tim Banks and these guys get a bulk of the criticism. When's the last time we had 4 sacks in a game? 3 weeks ago, Tennessee did to Pittsburgh and knocked a quarterback out of the game. And then you start looking back. Tennessee sacked South Carolina 4 times last year. They got Ole Miss, Matt Corral 5 times. There's some others in here. They got 3 against Will Levis last year. This is a whole, maybe we can weave this into part of the conversation, but this team and the way it plays, not only is it, I struggle to find them contextually, like you got to go back so far and then to find something this good. And then football kind of so different back then that it's hard to make those one-to-one comparisons. But then also there were just some particular things that Tennessee just wasn't real great at for a number of years, and not the fault of one coaching staff or another, just particular things. Getting to the quarterback was one of those things for a long time where other than Derek Barnett, who was great individually, you didn't feel like you had a lot of guys. There were a lot of, think about all the years we were playing, this guy's a converted defensive end playing defensive tackle, and this guy's a transfer and maybe he'll come in and solve all our problems and all that stuff. And now you look around and Tennessee gets back there regularly. So it surprised me. Maybe I'm the only one, but at halftime I thought, man, we got to be on some kind of crazy pace. No, like they had 4 sacks at Pittsburgh. Like you just forget that, like, and I'm still like, I want to find myself looking around the room to see like if anybody's going to hear me say, maybe we're just good at football. and it's been so long. Like, no, it's just what it's like when you're good at football. And it's been a minute on that, but it's pretty great.
Yeah. Because here's the bottom line. Tennessee didn't just beat LSU in Death Valley. They went into Baton Rouge as what, a 3.5, 4.5 point favorite, something like that. And they won by 27 points, and it probably should have been more. We would have won even if it wasn't, even if we didn't use that EMP that that people on Twitter are saying we used to cause the fumble. Which, if we got one of these, if we have one of those, let's bring it every time. Okay, it's cool.
Right. I don't know if it was the same guy on the message board, or I saw when Bill Connolly tweeted it, he had the picture of Clint Sterner going down too, of like Tennessee has used this device before. Again, like these are relevant comparisons. These 1998 things are suddenly these relevant kinds of comparisons. But we talked a lot in the off season. We talked a lot about the power of the good surprise, where what Tennessee did to Missouri last year, where Tennessee, this seems like a million years ago, but Tennessee was a 2.5 point underdog and then beat Missouri by 38. And that's the second biggest turnaround spread for Tennessee going back like 30 something years. But you start going through here and looking at some of this stuff. And I mean, Tennessee so that's a 24 point positive turnaround on the spread against LSU yesterday. South Carolina last year, Tennessee was favored by 10.5 and won by 25. So, I mean, these are things that are happening with frequency. And I don't know. Let's say I hope LSU wins every game the rest of the year. That's good for us if they do. But because you did it this time, not to Missouri, not to South Carolina, not even to Kentucky, who I know was a ranked win for us last year, but that LSU won the title 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And for Tennessee to come in there and do that against that program, like now, I mean, there's a lot of, again, the calendar is such a big part of all this. If we weren't playing Bama this week, this whole like, is Tennessee back? Where does this win rank? We'd be talking a lot more about LSU for a lot longer. Yeah. But now we get to pivot to, an even more fun conversation potentially. So that was a huge win, just a huge, deeply satisfying win. And not against Missouri or South Carolina or Kentucky, but against LSU on the road as only a 3-point favorite. And, everything you just said, it's pretty great right now. It's pretty great.
It's pretty great. I will point out that they did also fire the coach in the last 3 years. But
so did we.
There you go. Yeah.
It doesn't count against us. We're immune to that. Like no one gets to bring up that excuse with us. So
yeah. All right. Well, anything else you want to say about LSU before we just talk? I want to talk about just the Vols and how good they are right now. But do you want to say anything else about the LSU game before we move on?
No, other than just the general kind of still almost desperation for a full season where we can look back at the end of said season and say, yeah, man, that was the one. That was a good one. The things of when we played this game 6 years ago and you got all these wins, I remember thinking, this is all so much, so fast. We won't really have time to enjoy it until it's the end of the season. We can look back and do all this. And then it really fell apart for those guys in 2016, and you never got the chance to do that. So I think there's more confidence than ever, certainly post-Fulmer, more confidence than ever that Tennessee is going to put together an entire body of work here where you can, I want to talk a bunch about this LSU game in like May, except now the problem is in May, we'll probably be talking about baseball. So my off-season content list is down to like July.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about this game a lot more when we can look back at the whole body of work. But now we gotta, we got something more coming next. But I know you don't want to. Rightfully so. Like, let's talk more about Tennessee for a minute before we talk about Alabama.
Yeah. All right. So the Vols, they're number 6 in the AP poll. Number 6. I just want to let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
Not number 6 in preseason before before Florida. They're number 6 after Florida, after LSU. So that's good. They're
Yes,
because,
I concur.
some of these things are so fundamental, but it's been so long that you gotta, you know, you really have to explain these things to the
Well,
kid because
and
they've
that
never seen this before.
yeah, I mean, literally, that's correct. You would have to explain it to a kid, and which I wrote this on the site today. It's really they're so high now at 6, where like it's a true stat to say this is Tennessee's highest ranking since 2005. That's true, but in 05 they were 3 in the preseason poll. And then they almost lost to UAB. There was the Rick Clausen, Eric Ainge trying to figure it out. They almost lost to UAB in the opener. They went down to like 6. They were 5 when they played Florida in the Swamp, and they lost like 16-7. Urban Meyer's first year. So yeah, that team was 3, but not for long. So then, to me, if you really want to talk about what this team is doing now and look for the comparison, you got to look at when has Tennessee been ranked this high later in the year. Now, the 03 team is a really that's a strange and interesting kind of season where Tennessee went 10-2 going into the bowl game. They won in the Swamp, the halftime Hail Mary game. Then they lost to Auburn by a touchdown, and then they got blown out by Georgia in Neyland Stadium. But they came back. They beat Alabama in 5 overtimes in Tuscaloosa, and then they won at Miami, the Kellen Winslow I'm a Soldier game. So that Tennessee team got all the way back to 6, which is where the Vols are right now. That team got all the way back to 6 at the end of the regular season. They got really shafted by the bowl selection process. That was in anybody that's been around a super long time that's like, I'll never eat at Outback Steakhouse again. There may be no one listening to this podcast that remembers that. But Tennessee got passed over by the Outback Bowl and a number of others and ended up in the Peach Bowl and lost to Clemson. So even that team, you were 6 at the end of the regular season, but then they lost the bowl game. And people don't really think of that. That was just a weird year. And people don't really think of that. So then, where you go back to is 2001. And again, it doesn't have to be 1998 yet. We don't have to do that. But 2001, these are the championship caliber years. And that's where Tennessee is now. Tennessee lost in the hobnail boot. They dropped to 13. We put all this on our site today. They dropped to 13, and then they kept winning. And by the time they got to that game with Florida, the rescheduled game with Florida in the Swamp, they were at 5 in the AP poll. They were at 4 in the BCS. And, of course, they won. So then they went to 2. And of course, they lost.
Huge underdog to Florida for some reason.
Yeah, 16. It closed at 16.5. It was 18 for a lot of that week. That Bama line, by the way, is already down to 7. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So, but anyway, that to me is – 05 is truly the correct number. Last time they ranked that high, but that was preseason. 03, kudos to them for getting there at the end of the regular season. Just the bowl really lost a lot of, gave it such a bad aftertaste. And then we're at comparing this team to 2001. And I mean, I think that's the best comparison in terms of where Tennessee is in the national conversation. If we went on Saturday, we can talk about 1998 all we want. But right now, 01, other than winning it all, that's as close as we've come. So, yeah, I mean, this is, again, the title of this podcast should just be Things Are Pretty Great. Because they are. Things are pretty great.
Things are pretty great. So, yeah, I mean, we are in control of our destiny in the East. How long has it been since we've been able to talk about the race for the East, right? That conversation is usually out the window the 3rd week of September. But only Georgia's in the way right now. And when you look at Georgia, with the exception of a blowout win against number 11 Oregon, to kick off the season. They've not played any ranked teams yet, and they've flirted with some bad results against those teams. And then they have 3 top 25 teams in November, a rivalry game against Florida at the end of October before that even starts. And so the truth is, we really don't know how good Georgia is yet. Now, we think they're good. I mean, their history says that they're good. They're the defending national champions. They've been recruiting like crazy. They're generally good under Smart. So, we have a good reason to believe that they're super good, that they're the team to beat. But, we don't know just how good yet. And the thing is, we have some mounting evidence that Tennessee is actually pretty good. We do.
It's a real thing.
We have real stuff here. We have exhibits, man. I'm going to get out the poster board. So number 1, total offense, 547.8, 548 yards per game. Number 1. That's number 1. That's like nobody better, kids. There's nobody better. All right. Number 2 in scoring offense. We're scoring 47 points a game. 46.8. I'm looking at the official NCAA stats. I know that some people have been looking at some other things and coming up with different numbers, but I don't know. I don't know what that is. I'm looking at the official NCAA stats. And then, defense. Everybody's saying, well, we got vulnerabilities on defense. And I think it's kind of, it's true. But I think also that what we've done is the best thing we can do with that. And what I mean by that is that we've kind of chosen the right things to focus on and not be bad at, and just kind of gotten used to the idea that we're going to be bad at some things. Scoring defense is the thing, right? That's the end of the game. Scoring defense, we're 22nd. That's pretty good. That's good enough when your offense is number 1 or number 2 in scoring. Let's see, we got in red zone. We're tied for first red zone offense. I don't know how many are tied for first. It's but red zone defense also not bad, tied for 6th. So Tennessee's pretty good. And we played a pretty good schedule. We played Pitt, who's good. Florida, we had it was not just Florida, it was Florida and the weirdness that we were competing against, and we defeated both because the weirdness did show up, and we still won. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. We've been blogging since 2006. We've been saying I think Tennessee is good for, do the math for me. What is that? 14 years?
Well,
16 years.
16 years, but I think that's you can back this up with plenty of advanced stats and advanced metrics and all that stuff. Now, those first couple of years, 06, 07, Tennessee was good. But I started writing at Rocky Top Talk right after Lane Kiffin got hired. And so during that stretch, I mean, the other thing, other than 2016, the other things we would compare it to now are so far away. I mean, you were talking about like Derek Dooley's 3rd year where you hoped we were good and then we were really good on offense but not good on defense. That's miles away from this team. Yeah. 2015, where pound for pound, play for play, 2015 is Tennessee's best team of the last 15 years until this one. But that team, because that season started with the really frustrating losses to Oklahoma and Florida, you just always felt like you were still frustrated that it wasn't even more. And play for play, those guys were great, play for play. But other than that, even 16 now at this point, play for play, when you look at what those guys did against Appalachian State, they played the weird game with Virginia Tech where Virginia Tech fumbles 6 times. So if you fumble it to us 6 times, we should beat you by 3 possessions at least, which is what happened in Bristol. And then everything that happened in that 4-week span had plenty of unique moments and plenty of incredible celebratory moments. But that's why I was curious to see that game in 16, the Tennessee-Alabama game in 16, which was 1 versus 9. That was before LSU, when people were saying, well, this will be the biggest game since whatever. I'm like, we forget the week of that game. That was a huge game. We just got our doors blown off. And then what Tennessee did against Alabama in 2016 was like the 7th most consequential result in that season. So when we talk about Tennessee in 16, we never really talk about that. We talk about Bristol and Florida and Georgia, and then we talk about South Carolina and Vanderbilt. You think about, when you and I are both in our, 80s and are looking back and thinking about, all of these things, that 2016 season, every week was a story in some form or fashion. But that Alabama game, the week of it, you're telling yourself, if we don't turn it over literally 7 times against Texas A&M, we're undefeated. But play for play, that group, the way they struggle with App State, they beat Ohio like 28-19. That Georgia team in 16, the Hail Mary game, that was not a great Georgia team, Kirby's first year. When you compare that, and you still had this incredible buildup for Tennessee and Alabama that just went away instantly because Tennessee had a ton of guys hurt in that game. But Bama was just way better than us. Tennessee on that day was plus 13 in Neyland Stadium. Tennessee opened plus 8 here, and it's already down to 7. Now, Bryce Young, I don't know, right? Like, there's a whole factor there with Bama's quarterback that we'll see what happens with that. But, I mean, there's just not we wrote about some of this too. It's like we missed a step. There's been nothing between 9-4, and you're kind of upset about it in 15 and 16, and playing one of the biggest games that I have ever seen Tennessee play in, ever. There's a lot of middle ground there that we never stepped on. And let me say, Bama's going to be favored over us. Obviously, already are. Georgia will be favored over us. Kentucky, we'll see with Levis. Kentucky is capable of beating us. This could still end. This body of work in 2022 could end as that step. Tennessee could finish 9-3, and we would still say, okay, this was a step from here, and we're not ready to beat Alabama or beat Georgia. But it is without question true that we look more ready to do that right now than we have in 15 years. And it is without question, if you're plus 7 at home, like, we're not talking crazy talk to think about Tennessee continuing to carry this thing forward. But when you talk about the East, it does. What Tennessee does against Alabama doesn't matter for the SEC East, because we will control our own destiny no matter what, as long as Tennessee beats Kentucky, which has turned it, there's so much in this season too that's interesting. That Kentucky game in 2 weeks went from here comes another top 10 showdown to big flashing lights trap scenario, because Kentucky's got Mississippi State this week. I think Mississippi State is good. Like, I think they're good, real good. Yeah. So if Kentucky loses that game, then they've got a bye, and then they got us. And we got Georgia the week after. Like, that's trap all over that. So we got to get through that at that point in time. But it's just, that's a lot of me talking to say, here's all the comparisons and here's why they don't work perfectly. And there's just not a good one because there's a missing step in there up to this point.
Yeah. That is true. I was looking up the line because I think we're going to move on to the big question here. Alabama. Is this the biggest third Saturday in October? Um, well, it is a big one, and it's the biggest one since when? I know you've already written about this, but I wanted to just talk about Alabama for a second. I think when I was writing my notes, they were number 3 in the AP poll, and I think they're still number 1 in the coaches, unless that one had not been updated. But I think they're still number 1 in the coaches poll. And as usual, they've steamrolled some teams, but they also they squeaked by Texas, and Texas is kind of they've been Jekyll and Hyde in and out of the top 25. And they were 2 yards and 1 play away from getting beat by A&M last night. Did you see that on the Nick Saban show, how he diagrammed what he was thinking on that last play? I mean, that's amazing stuff, to have all 11 guys know exactly what they're supposed to do and have them all do it, and then, I mean, my wife asked me as we were watching the very end of that, she goes, "What do you think is going to happen?" I said, "I think Bama's going to stop them." That's kind of what they do, They come out in the end. But yeah, if you haven't seen that, look that up. Will, do you remember where that was? Was that Bill Connelly's Twitter timeline?
I've seen it a bunch of places on Twitter. As someone who does not watch Saban's coaches show ever, because why? I was super interested in the way, and this may be a nothing thing. It's just something that crossed my eyes. Just someone that works with people and does relationship stuff in church world and all that stuff. That he would call some players by their first name, and then he would call other players by their jersey number. I thought that was really interesting. And because Toto was one of them, where he was like, we got Henry over here, and then we got like 2 or something else. And Will Anderson, he called him by his first name. So in my brain, I was like, you have to be, if you're so good, like Will Anderson can be called by his first name, but everybody else is their jersey number. But all those little cogs in that machine were I mean, it was exactly right. And I kept watching it back to think, man, I don't know the first thing. I don't know what it's like to be the quarterback in that scenario, in that play. I think he had more time than he thought he had. A&M's quarterback, I think he had more time than he thought he had. And I don't know what happened there, but I'm glad. I had the reflex watching that last night. I had to keep thinking, no, I want Bama to win.
Yeah, me too. At that point,
I would prefer it by more than this. So yeah, but Saban is Saban. He's he's a smart dude.
Yeah, and to get that knowledge out of his head and into the head of all those players, that's a system that it's I don't want to give him credit for it. So I'll call it okay. He did a pretty good job, Nick. Yeah, he does a good job. So they did. It's important to note they played without Bryce Young, and that was the other thing I was going to look up. At the time I wrote my notes, there was no new news on him. Have you seen it? It's about 9:45 Sunday night right now. Do they have anything? Usually they'll release those things Monday during the press conference.
I've just seen expected to play. So whatever that is or means, I don't think anyone is under the impression that he's out for the year, or anything like that. So I expected to play is my default assumption until somebody from Alabama says otherwise.
Yeah. So they're a different team with him, of course. He's the Heisman Trophy winner from last year. So I don't know how many points he's worth, but there's not a lot of drop off. I mean, that other guy's pretty good. If you see him, you basically employ the Florida game plan, right? Pretty much any running quarterback is going to get that game plan. That you're going to give up some stuff, but you want to make sure that the quarterback doesn't get loose on you all game long. What they are over the course of the season, total offense, number 7. And, we used to write these things. I used to write the game previews, and remember one year there's a monster at the end of this book.
Yeah.
It's takeoff of Sesame Street if nobody catches the reference, but and so I would go through everything that Alabama was, and then I would talk about how scary it was to play them, jokingly. But here,
mostly jokingly, yeah.
Mostly jokingly, yeah. But mostly I just got tired of writing the same thing every year, so I had to come up with a different way to say it. But total offense, they're 7th in the nation, and normally, on most years, I would say, see, there they are again. But you know what? They're not number 1.
Right.
All right. You know who is number 1? Tennessee. Tennessee's number 1. All right. So their scoring offense, number 5. That's pretty good. That's kind of scary. You know what it's not? It's not number 2.
That's right.
All right. You see where I'm going here? All right. Now the defense is better. Total defense 6. Ours is 87, but total defense doesn't matter. All right. Right. I'm starting to tell myself lies again. All right. So stop me when I do that. But scoring defense matters. So their scoring defense is 6th. Actually, is that what I just said? Or did I say total defense? Oh, they're both
total is total is what you're talking about a second ago.
Okay. Scoring, this is what they're 6th. Score. It's not that bad. And that's why it's kind of an even game. If our offense is a little bit better, their defense is a little bit better, you're talking about a good game. And in the red zone, this is surprising. Remember, Tennessee's red zone offense and defense are tied for 1st and 6th. Alabama's red zone offense, 53rd. Their red zone defense, 38. So there's something. All right. Now, at the time I wrote this, they were an 8.5 point favorite. You said that the last you had seen it was down to 7 or 7.5.
7 is what I saw before Boo at the Zoo. It was 7. 7.5 from 2 hours ago.
Okay. I think it started at I'm going to look up my hat guy thing here. Well, in a minute, I'll look it up. But regardless, you're talking about probably one possession game, or maybe one plus a little. Cheapest tickets on the secondary market right now are, or at the time I wrote my notes, $368 each. That's the cheapest ticket. And if you want a good seat, they're $3,000 each in Section T, row 30, if you want it, at least when I checked it. So you have to trade in your 2012 Camry, actually, to pay for that ticket. And then you're still sitting by yourself unless you get another Camry. So, so my question to you, Will, this Saturday's game against Alabama is the biggest game in Neyland Stadium since when, against who, and why?
See, you asked me the hardest one first because it's true. Like, if it's Neyland Stadium, I think it's 1998. We posted this before about since 1968, not 1998, since 1968. This Saturday will be the 11th time Tennessee has ever played a game where, if you take the rankings of the two teams and add them together, it's a single digit. 3 + 6 is 9. So we've only played 10 other games in 55 years like this, starting, of course, at the top with 1 versus 2 in the national championship in 1998. Every Tennessee-Florida game, Tennessee and Florida, one of them was ranked 2 and one of them was ranked 4 in 96, 97, 99, and 2001 in the BCS. Like, that's just a quick shout out to anyone young there may be no one younger than us in our demographic listening to this, but anyone that is, those games were life and death, man. And there might, because Alabama's not in our division, it may not feel quite as much like that back then, but I think it's 98 because the other games that are on the list of like biggest games since 2001 Florida, no question. 2001 Florida is a bigger game than this one. It was just in Gainesville. But 2001 Florida, that was, we thought, win and play for the national championship. So no question, anyone that says that this is bigger than that game is a crazy person or was not alive in 2001. Other than that, though, if you want, Tennessee's been in the SEC championship game 3 times since then. They were in the SEC championship game the very next week, 2001. They were there in 04 and 07. Now, in 04 and 07, we were not headed to the national championship if we won it. And in fact, both times we were playing teams. Auburn in 04 was undefeated. LSU won it in 2007. So both times the odds were against us significantly, those 2 trips to Atlanta. But if you want to say, look, those were bigger games than this because it was the SEC championship game, that's fine. I got no problem with that. Those games were in Atlanta. Other than those games, I don't know, man. So I would say 2001 Florida at least is as far back as that's where I would stop for sure and say that was a bigger game than this. If you want the other SEC championship games, that's fine too. But in Knoxville, I mean, I think it's 98. I just don't know the other huge games in Knoxville after 98. In 99, Georgia was ranked 10th and Tennessee was 6 or 7. Tennessee won 37 to 20. That just didn't feel, we had beaten Georgia 1,000 years in a row at that point in time. So it didn't feel that way. The 2001, Georgia was, I think, unranked. The hobnail boot, I think they were unranked at the time. Mark Richt's first year. If they were ranked, it wasn't very high. And so that didn't feel like a big game coming in. The LSU game in Knoxville that year didn't feel like a huge game coming in. And other than that, like the Cal game in 06 was huge for Tennessee. This is why I wrote this about Sunday. Like, one other thing that we have not done in 15 years is because our rivals are winning national championships. Think about what Texas did to Oklahoma. Like, if you're a Texas fan, what a ginormous day that is for your program Saturday. Does it resonate on the national level? Not much, because I think Oklahoma's kind of bad, and Texas has already lost 2 games. But if you're a Texas fan, you don't care about any of that right now. You're so happy to beat Oklahoma. You beat your rival 49-0. When you're us and your rivals the last 15 years have won 8 national championships, we don't have the opportunity to surprise. We beat our biggest rival 49-0. That's not been in the cards, my friend. So these are not options that have been available to us. So there have been games like Cal in 2006. 2007 Kentucky is the last win that I don't feel any like that. 07 Kentucky 4 overtimes to get to Atlanta. That's the last one where I look back at it and I say that was a great win. And I don't look back at it the way I do the 2016 wins over Florida and Georgia and say that was a great win, but but being we still lost the opportunity to go to the New Year's Six and all that stuff. So I think it is, to me, it's the biggest game that Tennessee has played since 2001 Florida. If you want the SEC championship games, that's totally fine. But in Knoxville, I think that makes it the biggest game since 1998. And like, I don't want to say that. I'm not ready to talk about 1998 yet. I'm happy to talk about 2001. Like, I'm happy to talk about other years. I'm just not ready to talk about an instant equating what we're doing with winning the national championship. I think that's unfair. I don't think we're there yet. But like I said, if we win on Saturday, we can talk about 1998 all you want.
Yeah. And like you were saying about, Texas and Oklahoma, if you're talking about one game at a time, I like that you often talk about games in context of how the season plays out and how a game can be rendered sort of impotent in the memory by the way the season ends, just like 2016 was ruined. At the same time, I kind of view it as, somebody's, I don't know who it was, some commentator or somebody this week, they were saying, every Saturday is a new season. Every game is a new season. And that's true. Like when you're Texas and your season is lost, and Oklahoma, your season is lost, but you're playing your rival, and it means something, And so I like the fact that that I just, this game I think is going to be huge. I think it's going to be have the same kind of feel that Tennessee, Florida in 1998 had when it's just that we don't have the historical context for it yet. And I think that might be a good thing. Game day is going to be there. It's going to be sold out. There's going to be, every car dealership is going to be filled with 2012 Camrys. So, it's going to be fun. So, yeah, I'm excited. I know that anybody who's listening to my voice for the first time, it's like, that dude's not excited. But trust me, this is me excited. All right. All right. This is how as excited as I get. But yeah, I'm super stoked. So,
I would just say too, the other thing, if the best comparisons we have are these Tennessee Florida games, and here's something I think this point is getting ready to go away in college football in the SEC, because these guys are not in our division. This is not all or nothing. When we lost to Florida in September in 95, since he wasn't ranked as high in 95, but in 96, 97, 99, it felt like death, because the whole flavor of your season then became, will Florida lose twice? Doesn't matter what else Tennessee does, because at that point we'd broken the Bama streak and we were beating Georgia every year. It was, will they lose twice? And you played that game week 3, and that's why it's so interesting to me too. Just, and these may be only things that I, you and I care about as a pastor and a lawyer, but like, we are conditioned as fans when we talk about those rivalry things. Until last year, Tennessee has played Florida, Georgia, and Alabama in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
So we're conditioned for the back half of this thing is focusing on next year and young players when it doesn't go well, or even when it does go really well for us, watching Florida and hoping they'll lose. I can't tell you how many Saturdays in those years of like, yeah, Tennessee's playing South Carolina today, but the real action is, will Georgia beat Florida? And usually the answer was no. And so we're conditioned in that way. But now, again, Bama's not in our division. So if Tennessee loses a close game on Saturday, like our playoff odds are not going to evaporate because you've still got Georgia. And if we lose a close game, what we're going to say to ourselves is, let's go beat Georgia and get these guys again and get Bama in Atlanta. And if you do that, we're going to the playoff. So like, this is a whole new dynamic that we just don't have the rhythm for it. And I think that's how, again, I'm a history major. Anybody that listens to our site or reads our stuff knows I always love these comparisons. But at this point, we are stretching back so far to make them that not only has football itself changed and Heupel's offense and all that stuff changed, it is still super fun. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to do during the Tennessee Martin week to say, let's look at just Hendon Hooker compared to some of these other UT quarterbacks and that sort of stuff. But like the comparisons are so far back and the landscape around us has changed so much about what it means to win the East, what beating Florida means and what it doesn't mean. It's just new. And I think we had to get to this point to kind of realize it, but the comparisons about looking at the ranked numbers and seeing how big of a game it is on a national level, all that's good and true. But in terms of what this will mean for Tennessee's season, I don't know what the good comparison is, because the best you can do with it by the numbers is Florida. But that was a division game where if you lost it, you were screwed. Yeah. And this, and don't get me wrong, this is our best shot against these guys since Nick Saban has been on the sideline, other than the first year, which we don't want to talk about that anyway. But like, I want to beat these guys desperately. But it's different than those Florida games, just because you don't have to think like, if Alabama beats us, it doesn't matter if they lose 2 games. They won't, by the way. It doesn't matter. Like, that's not the chase for us. The chase would then become Georgia, and can we get back in this thing? So the bad outcome, and this is certainly possible. We lived part of this 6 years ago. We may get out there and just find that we're not quite ready for this, that Bama is Bama, and we still have some of the trappings that come with where we are in year 2 with Heupel and after everything we've been through and all that stuff. So we might find out we're not ready for this. I have more reason to believe that won't be the case with this team than any Tennessee team post Fulmer. But it's just its own thing. And I've spent 2 days, man, it's so much fun. Like, our lives are busier and we're doing different things. There was a time, and I love hearing from folks that have been reading us at various websites for a long time. But like, in my pre-married, pre-kids days, like, I'd crank out 3-4 pieces a week about, Bowling Green or whoever we were playing. Yeah. And that's just not my life right now. But I find myself right now being like, man, I want to write about this every day, because it's so it's so precious and rare, this opportunity stretching so far back. And it's just new, and it's its own thing, and it's great. And let's go win it. That's the real thing too. It's not great just to be here. Like, I want to see if Tennessee can win this game. And I'm, not going to be alone in thinking that they can.
Yeah, we've written too many meaningless stories about Bowling Green to let this week pass by.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. Do you want to know what Hat Guy thinks about this?
I do want to know what this is the old Statsy preview machine. I do want to know what Hat Guy Statsy preview machine thinks about this.
Yes. He says Alabama by 5.7. So Tennessee 18 points, Alabama 24. And It's just hard to believe that Tennessee only scores 18 points, isn't it?
What did we end? I think we got 17 against Georgia last year, and there was a piece of the Bama game last year where it was like the faucet got turned off, where we were hitting deep bombs and all that stuff, and Hooker threw an interception. I remember it because it almost never happens, and all that stuff. But it's that score would surprise me, but it probably shouldn't, just because Bama's Bama, and we shouldn't be. There's a difference between being disappointed in an outcome and being surprised by it.
Yeah.
So if Bama shuts this offense, I think it'd be surprising if they hold us to 7 points. But if Bama holds this offense to 18, that would be disappointing, but maybe not the most shocking thing in the world. They're Bama. Yeah.
Well, the two best comps from a defensive perspective are LSU, of course, who are holding opponents to 19, and Florida holding opponents to 25. Alabama's scoring defense is 12.5. So those are the closest comps, and Alabama's significantly better. But I mean, against those comps, Tennessee scored 176% of what they usually give up, almost double of what those teams usually give up. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this game. I'm already setting the stage that nobody's going, no 11-year-olds are going to ask me for my phone so they can play Minecraft during the game. I'm not going to work on projects on commercials. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to watch and enjoy, unless somebody has an old 2012 Camry that they want to donate so that I can go, or like an extra ticket because somebody got COVID and wants to reach out to me and say, hey, do you want to go to the game? So am I begging for Alabama tickets? Yeah, I am.
You put some fear in me, because I really, thankfully, no one in our house has had COVID for 2.5 years. And I've spent lots of, when we moved here 4 months ago, I spent a long periods of irrational fear of like, well, I'll get COVID for sure, my last Sunday in Virginia or my first Sunday here or whatever. And I've really been free. That's been my joke, kind of, is like, okay, now I can get COVID anytime. But like, this would be a bad week for that. So
no. If you get COVID, just sit in the Alabama section.
Again, this is not legal advice.
Yeah. Okay. I only want to spend 30 seconds on this because we're a little over an hour. But yeah, I want to talk about Brew McCoy's stiff arm, because I have been very impressed with this man's stiff arm. It's like something you only see with running backs. But man, when this guy gets the ball after catching it, if you go up and try to tackle him, he's going to punch you in the face, and it's legal. And you are not going to be able to reach him. So I don't know. Thoughts, Will?
No, it's awesome. Listen, as someone watching it from home, the Tennessee fans in Tiger Stadium, when he did that and went down the sideline, and the sound of the Tennessee fans on the road doing the brew, like, that's cool. Pretty good. So yeah, I'm grateful. Again, credit Heupel and these guys, and we've talked about there's so many years where Tennessee was so depleted. Of course, all this pre-transfer portal years where Tennessee was so depleted, and you'd get a transfer from anywhere and think maybe this guy will save our whole defensive line, or sign one. Tennessee did a better job recruiting than this, but the best players they signed to say that guy's got to come in right away. Joshua Josephs, he's like, that guy is playing great for Tennessee and they're doing a good job getting him on the field more often, getting him on the field when they can rush more guys on third down and all that stuff. He's great. And there were so many years for Tennessee where it was like, well, he better be as a true freshman, like he better be great or we're screwed. And so, yeah, it's nice to see that these guys, for the most part, that Tennessee is bringing in, there's a Rick Barnes quality to this of these guys are getting developed, are making, significant impact. And the fact that Tennessee's passing game has not dropped off without Cedric Tillman is just kind of stupid. I mean, that's just, I think I'm done worrying of, oh no, they've got to bring in another wide receiver. Like it's going to be fine. And that too, that's an old Tennessee sort of thing. It was running back for a long time at Tennessee of like, doesn't matter who goes down, whoever comes in is going to be great.
Yep.
And that at wide receiver anyway, so far, that's pretty much what's happened.
Yeah, I used to be really jealous of Lincoln Riley, I think it was, because no matter what quarterback he touched, he turned into a Heisman Trophy winner.
Right.
But I like Heupel. I think it's, I'm not taking anything away from Hendon Hooker. He's doing all the right things, and I love the guy. But I think where the confidence comes from is that Heupel knows how to turn guys into that. He knows how to train quarterbacks, and the system is what gets everybody clicking. And again, the system is not a knock on the players. The players still have to go out and do it, but he knows how to train them. He knows how to teach them and coach them to do the thing that wins. So that's where the confidence comes from, that no matter who comes in, he's going to be able to teach them. Yeah, they've already been taught probably. So, yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here. This is the Game Day at Rocky Top podcast. We are, we think, live streaming for the first time. This has kind of been what we call a soft opening. We didn't announce it to anybody in case it didn't work. And actually, we still have all of our fingers crossed that it actually recorded so that we can use it as the podcast too.
Because which is where most of the people find it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still hoping that works. We're living dangerously. But we do appreciate you tuning in, assuming that happened.
Right. Otherwise, it's been great talking to you for an hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah. It has been fun.
It has. So, things are pretty great.
Yeah. So we will, if this did work, then we're going to do more of them like this. And then if that is the case, then next time you can catch us wherever you want. We'll probably post it on the website, but you can also catch it on YouTube, on Facebook Live, and on Twitter, whatever Twitter's live streaming thing is. And you can chat on any of those, and we will see it here on this platform, and we can respond to the chat right here. So we can do some pretty cool things. So hopefully it works. All right. But in any event, Will, nice talking to you. And anybody who heard, thanks for listening. All right. So now we're going to bonus coverage.
It just all reminds me of, again, we have been doing this so very long that like there was a time at Rocky Top Talk where it was talk shoe.
Yep.
And you had to, I know we were all on our phones.
Yep.
But I think to listen live, did you also have to call a number? Like, I don't think it was streaming live on RockyTopTalk.com. I think you had to also call a number and listen to us talk on your telephone.
Yeah, it was like a giant business conference call.
Yeah. And like, I mean, hey, like people did shout out to longtime readers of that website. But yes, we've come a long way from the talk shoe days, and are so old now that I'm sure there are many people watching this that are like, how do you not know what Restream is? Which makes me want to say, well, you don't know what talk shoe is. So get over it.
Right. Talk shoe. Yeah, it had a rotary dial.
Yeah.
Click, 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 click.
Yeah. Yeah.
Restream,
Yeah,
I think is I don't know that I think there are other services that do this. I picked this one because I found it. It's part of that Ukrainian thing. So yeah, and I can put like this thing up. I don't know because it says live over here in the corner. I don't know if that's being recorded or not. But yes, I can do this. That added a border. Okay, that's not what I want.
Maybe the bonus coverage, anything goes. I was like, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now it's just a flag that says something that, unless that live stuff is not actually there, or you can do like really stupid things too.
Yeah, sure.
That is very stupid. Don't like that at all. There we go. Hearts coming out of this is like Bath and Body Works theme.
Did you specifically pick these as father of only girls? Like, I feel like these are some repressed things are coming out here of like, this is stupid.
Well, see, there's a cupcake. Yeah, no, these were packaged, so I don't know why these are the package. I don't know. Oh, that's just a Restream thing. So I don't know what those are. Just shapes.
The UFO up there above me.
Yeah. Now if I could just figure out how to turn it off.
Bonus coverage this time is Joel pushes all the buttons to see what they do.
That's right.
Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah. So I assume you're going. You and Alex.
Yeah. We're trying to figure out our nephew's birthday is in the morning at one of these gymnastics places. So we're gonna try to figure that out. My Covington, my son, his birthday wasn't actually the day of the Florida game, but that was the Saturday. So we had his birthday party the morning of the Florida game at like 9:30, and we won. So that's working out well. So this time we're gonna do some.
You should have another birthday party.
Yeah. So shout out to my nephew Lucas, and his dad Bryant, big fan of my brother-in-law, big fan of the podcast. So hopefully that magic will continue. What worked for me will also work for my sister's kids. So hopefully that'll be something that's there. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Like anybody, that's a real thing where I'm like, I got to write a bunch this week because who knows? It's the same argument I had, and Chris Penley and I had this conversation, former Rocky Top Talk writer, about the Gator Chomp, about doing the Gator Chomp in Neyland Stadium, where I just did it's the George Costanza thing of like, I did the mental calculus on when might be the next time I actually get to do this again. And I calculated the odds of the Portuguese waitress, that George Costanza thing. And it was like too good to pass up. And so, yes, Alex and I did the Gator Chomp up 17, not up 10, up 17. Because it was just like, I don't know when this is going to come around again. So I'm going to take advantage of it now. So that's how I feel about writing 20,000 words about Tennessee and Alabama this week. My favorite, when you said the Tennessee's tied for first in the country in the red zone. I looked it up and I didn't realize my favorite thing about that stat is the other 3 teams that have scored every time they've been in the red zone. It's Tennessee, Clemson, Ohio State, and Vanderbilt. So that stat may be a bit unreliable, but yeah, Vanderbilt is perfect in the red zone. Vanderbilt has scored 17 touchdowns and 4 field goals on 21 red zone visits. So they actually have a higher touchdown percentage than Tennessee and Clemson in that category. So
anyway. Have you been paying attention to Vanderbilt? Because
clearly not.
Because I'm starting to think that maybe they're not bad this year. And that's a little, 2016-ish creepy. But yeah, I think, yeah, I think maybe we should keep one eye open on Vandy.
In SP Plus, Tennessee would be favored over Vanderbilt right now by like 27. So
okay, never mind.
Not well. What it's like not crazy. Not we were favored over Akron by 50. So not that, but yeah, we'll find out. There's lots of these teams. South Carolina, Missouri, like we got time. We'll find out. We'll see, what to do with any of those things. Heupel's got we are really good at beating teams we are better than. Plus or minus Purdue, who we played that game without Alontae Taylor and Theo Jackson, and that is not recommended last year. But we're really, really good at beating teams we're better than. So yeah.
Hat guy made me feel better too. 59-20.
Okay, so Hat guy's plus 39 on the. Again, we got time to worry about that. I've been telling moving to town and meeting new people and all this stuff, and folks in my church, like when I've met some very passionate and serious Alabama fans, that's what I've been saying all year is like, we don't have to worry about you. Like we got to worry about Florida. And then we got to worry about LSU. Like we don't have to worry about you now. So, but now we do. So that's how I feel about Georgia right now. Like, we'll solve that problem later.
I want to see what Hat guy says about Georgia.
They're so close to SP Plus, Bama and Georgia. Bama is less than 1 on a neutral field. Bama would be favored by 0.8 of a point over Georgia in SP Plus.
Alabama versus Georgia?
Yeah, Bama is 29.1 and Georgia is 28.3 in SP Plus. So if they played in Atlanta, Bama would be, -1.
All right. So what's it say about Tennessee, Georgia?
So Tennessee is 21. Tennessee would be 7-point underdog against Georgia on a neutral field. So 9.5 in Athens.
All right. So I got it. Yeah. Hat guy's got him at 12.5.
Yeah. Someone said this on Sports Animal, one of the shows a couple of days ago about, what does Tennessee have a better chance to beat Alabama or Georgia, just based on the supposition that if we got ahead of Georgia, could Stetson Bennett, get them going? But I just feel like some of that is we're stereotyping those guys. I mean, I know they were bad against Missouri offensively, but pretty much everybody else, they kind of do what they want. So I think it's myth that, if we got up, 17 on Georgia, that they couldn't come back. I don't know that I'm buying that.
No, their strength is running. So, it doesn't take them long to score. I mean, when you're running and getting first downs. So it seems like the game plan against Georgia is to just keep everything in front until you get in the red zone and then blitz.
Send them all, right?
Yep. But the thing is, at the very end, the last 4 minutes, Georgia just overwhelmed them, and they could just run whenever they wanted, and they ran right in and got 2 scores, I think.
Missouri, yeah. I was so mad at myself for staying up and watching that because I was like, that didn't. They won anyway. You knew it; they would win. They won anyway. My favorite. I'm going to say this, and then I got to jump off here so everyone in this house can get to bed at a reasonable hour.
Yeah.
If you look at, I may write this in one of my 40 pieces this week. The line history of Tennessee and Alabama. The last time we were favored was 2007. Of course, we lost Saban's first year. We were -1 in Tuscaloosa. The year before, we were -10 in Knoxville. It shows you how quickly things changed. And then we were +5 in Fulmer's last year. And since then, the closest we've been is 2016. We were +13. But I mean, it's just absurd. Like the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. This is going to sound like I'm calling out the Powerball numbers. The last 5 years against Bama, working backwards. The last 5 years, starting in 2021, +25, +21, +34, +29, +36, going all the way back to Butch Jones last year. Like this is it's been a hopeless enterprise for 5 years. And the closest it got before that was +13. So now to be at 7.5 on Sunday night, again, let's just go play. I don't have the context for it. I could do a fancy bar graph and be like, one of these things is not like the other one.
There's nothing more depressing than sitting in Neyland in the fourth quarter and there's nothing but Bama fans left. And they're singing Rammer Jammer. And
there's a full circle. Like my 2 favorite things to the "Are we back" conversation this week. One on a text group with a bunch of my buddies, we were talking about, in a practical world. Now we're reaching the point of the bowl game and who's got vacation days and could we, how much fun would it be to do this or that? And I was like, well, really at this point, I feel like the Citrus Bowl is a worst case scenario. And that's how you know you're back. Like if the Citrus Bowl is the worst case scenario, that's a good sign of being back. Yeah. But I think also too, man, if you go through and look at just, all of these different things of how bad it's been and whatever, the start of that, if you, that last Fulmer year where it was that way, where all the Tennessee fans left and it was only Bama fans left and doing that, that's what we just did to LSU last week. So there's the full circle of until you do that to someone else, are you really back? So check that one off the list.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really hope this got recorded because it was pretty good.
Right.
So
me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Cross your fingers.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep in touch this week and let me know, and we can enjoy the week. It'll be good.
All right.